Alright, so we are going on to 510, factoring by grouping. We still have 5 more sections of this chapter. We're going to do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yay! Okay, now, factoring, we've been learning a lot about factoring, and there's so many different ways. Hopefully you've gotten a really great grasp of what we've done so far. If not, you still need to go back and learn this. It is very important for this class. It's very important for your future math classes. It helps you solve equations, and it can help you solve real life equations eventually. Whether you want to think that's good enough of a reason to learn it, you need to. Okay, so factoring by grouping. So this is called factoring by grouping. You will factor parts of a polynomial then see if there is a greatest common factor, or GCF, whichever one you want to put. Greatest common factor. Oops, run out of room. Okay, you could write GCF. Between the partially factored out parts of the polynomial. Usually, factoring by groups occurs in 4-term polynomials. So typically you'll see it like that, but not always. And we will group together the first 2 and the last 2. So we're going to kind of work our way into factoring by grouping. So first, you might see this. You might think, Ms. Robinson, that's not a 4-term polynomial. It would be if you were to distribute out the 5 and the w. But right now, they're actually making our life so much easier. So we're going to work our way up. So you see how we have x plus y twice. If you're able to factor out like a common factor and end up with 2 things, 2 binomials or whatever it is, in this case it's going to be binomials, then that will be your first factor. So you're going to say x plus y is my first factor. You're not going to put it twice because it's there twice. Not doing that. You just put it once. But these have to be the same for you to be able to put it. Then you're going to take what's left. You have a 5 and a positive w. So that's going to be your second factor. And that will factor out to the same thing like this if you were to factor everything out. FOIL everything out or distribute everything out. Okay? So we're going to continue on. Now, oh, look, we have another one very similar to number 1. We have a minus 3 and a minus 3. They're the same. Okay? They're in the parentheses, they're the same, so therefore we can use that as our first factor, a minus 3. So our second factor is going to be 5 minus 2a, because that's what's left over. It's got to be careful with the sign. And then those are our 2 factors. Okay, now this one is not like it, so we're going to actually have to factor out the GCF of the common factors of these 2 right here. So I'm putting parentheses around it because we're going to first factor out the GCF of 2ab minus 6ac. So what do they have in common? 2a. So I'm factoring out a 2a. Y'all remember how to factor out. So if I factor out 2a times what will give me 2ab? Just b. And then 2a times a negative 3c will give me a negative 6ac. So this is my first part. But now I need to factor out from the second part. I'm going to factor out a positive 3, and that's all I can take. So I'm going to multiply that by b, because 3b will give me 3b. And then 3 times a negative 3c will give me a negative 9c. And look, we have kind of what we just had up here for example 2 and for example 1. We have this common factor. So therefore our first factor will be b minus 3c. And then we're going to take 2a and plus 3. So, oops, my bad. 2a plus 3 will be my second one. So there we go. So we had to do a little extra step, but not too bad because we know how to factor out. That's easy for us, or it should be easy for us now. Okay, so sometimes you need to factor out a negative also to see the common factor between the 2 groupings. Okay, so you might not always want to, you remember how I told you need to remember how to factor out a negative? This is why. Not the only reason why. but I'm going to break it up into two pieces, and I'm going to say that this is going to be plus, and then that's going to be a negative st minus 5t. Okay, so it's plus a negative. Same thing as subtraction. So I'm going to first look at the first one. I need to take out an r. So that will be left with, I need an s and then plus 5, because r times s will give me rs, and r times 5 is 5r. Now, if I were, before you write and copy everything down, I'm going to end up erasing it, so listen and watch. If I were to originally just leave the negative, leave it positive and just take out a t, that would leave me with a negative s minus 5, because t minus times a negative s will give me a negative st, and t times 5 will give me a negative 5t. Look, they're not the same, but they're close. We can take out the negative. So we're going to erase this, and I'm really going to be taking out a negative s, or not negative s, negative t. So if I take out a negative t times s will give me a negative ts, and a negative t times positive 5 will give me a negative 5t. So therefore now we have these common factors, and we have, so our first factor is s plus 5. You see how different my s and my 5 are? Completely different. And then this is r minus t, so r minus t. So there you go. If you want to practice on those, that's great, but I'm not doing more of them in the video notes. Okay, hope this helps.